everybody? Welcome in. It's an intense part of the song right here. I'm like, I hate to cut it. I hate to cut it. My legs are jelly right now. It's been dancing. When you can finally take a break from dancing. For those of y'all that are break dancers, I never was, but I know how it feels like. Because I've been tired watching y'all for years. I know how it feels like. Tater, you look like you would be a break dancer back in the day. Like back when we were in middle school, you were a break dancer, weren't you? What up, everybody? Welcome in. Happy freaking Wednesday to each and every one of you. It is a fantastic day here in Houston, Texas. What a day. What a day. How's it going for everyone out there? What it do? Welcome in, everybody. It is a fantastic day. It has been a fantastic week. I'm pretty tired. I feel like hopefully you guys are having a better week than me. I've just been outside working a lot this week. But either way, hopefully you guys are doing great. This is our first stream since our debate that we had this past Friday. And boy, was that a awesome stream. That was 5 hours, heavy debating. If you guys haven't seen the VOD, you should go check it out. I'm going to be pulling it down and downloading it and getting that on a permanent reel. Most of these like big debates that we do like that, I'm definitely going to try and do that stuff with. I am editing about 5 videos right now. I've got one product review video that I have coming out. I've also got 2 interviews that we did, one with my boy Notebook Dude and one with 0077 that's going to be hitting the airwaves hopefully here in the next week or two as I go through and edit these down. I've also got my own trailer in the works here for the channel and a couple other things as well. I've got a couple of really good ideas coming in for some of the stuff here for the channel. But with that being said, hot button topics tonight. We've got a lot happening that we need to talk about. So first off, thank you for coming in. Thank you, Tater, for being the first one in. Thank you so much. We had our new follower that we got to give a shout out to, Warrior Insights. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for dropping that follow as well. Yeah, man, always supporting channels. Always supporting channels as you go through and you meet streamers, you go through and you support streamers. So it's always good to be able to show some love for a fellow streamer. But I do got to give a shout out for anyone out there who is interested in gaming and is loving a Fortnite style game or even some Star Wars games. Let's go through and I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy Tater Salad here. Make sure you guys go through and drop a follow for Tater Salad. There is the shout out right there. Make sure you go drop him a follow. If you guys are interested in any Star Wars games or any Fortnite games, this guy's playing constantly. And man, I was in his chat this weekend watching this Star Wars game that he was playing. I don't even recall this game ever being a thing. But boy, was it not kick-ass. It was a really good game. A really good game. I think it was called like Jedi Last Survivor or something like that. Either way, it was really cool. So that's one of those things that I think you all need to do for sure. With that being said, so we got a couple of topics that I want to bring back up a little bit. First off, if you hadn't seen the VOD from Friday, please go see it. Please go see it. It's the best video ever. I mean, we have people looking into it, but it's about the small things. So go check out the VOD. It was a really good 5-hour debate. We had a lot of stuff that we hit on there. You know what? I found out one thing, and I do want to give some props to Common Grounds Live. I found out that Joe Biden lies. This just in. Joe Biden lies. I know that this is probably old news to all of us because we're fucking human beings. But Joe Biden lies. And He lied about being at the top of his graduating class in law school. Can you believe it? That lying son of a bitch. That lying son of a bitch. That guy was insane. Well, I don't have the music going anymore. Do I, Tater? I don't believe so, man. There's no music. It's just you and me, buddy. It's just you and me. Right? Just you and me right here. Yeah. There's no music. So we're all done with that. He never told a lie. He's better than Lincoln. I know. It's insane. Jedi Survivor. That was the game you were playing. It was a really cool game, dude. Are you going to be streaming that this weekend? Because I'm going to be watching if you are. It was a really good game. Yeah, while the music was going, dude, it was intense music. I didn't want to interrupt the intense music. I wanted that song to finish. It's a good song, right? Like, let me see. Where are we at here? It's a really good song. Like this one. This one's really good. I feel like you would be a break dancer. You know what I mean? I feel like this is all you, man. This is like a break dance right here. Like, I feel like you would be in middle school, the baggy jeans, Fruitopia, everywhere. And like this would be the music you were breaking. What up, Haley? What up, Haley Wolf in the house? If you guys are looking for a fantastic who does Fortnite, Haley Wolf's in the house, guys. Haley Wolf. What up, Haley? Thanks for coming in. Thanks for dropping in. Oh, yeah. It was loud as fuck. I know. It was supposed to be. I'm not trying to have the music. Some parachute pants with this, bro. I know, man. Do you remember Fruitopia? Fruitopia was fantastic. I don't know if anyone remembers that stuff, but Fruitopia was the drink of the future, and I know what happened to it. I'm going to tell you. If y'all didn't know about Fruitopia and what was going to happen to it and what had happened to it, I'm sorry to break it down for you, but basically Fruitopia was a superior fruit drink. Fantastic stuff. And it came in vending machines, and the vending machine screams early 2000s, late 90s to everyone. But with that being said, Coca-Cola in its Minute Maid Nazi regime party bought the Fruitopia name and killed it. And now we have Minute Maid. And they never came out with a Fruitopia style drink. That is whack. Like, you could have easily had the Minute Maid line. You could have easily had the Fruitopia line. Is all I'm saying. If we had some Fruitopia, they'd be fantastic. The world would be in a better place. You know, Tater, Haley, you know, every once in a while, I go into people's backyards because I'm a wastewater operator, and I have to go look for manholes and things like that. I was in a backyard. It's probably around August of last year. I'm not kidding. If this family had a Fruitopia vending machine in their backyard, they had a pool and everything like that. It was a nice setup, and they had a Fruitopia vending machine. And it was active and live, and it had the Fruitopia cover on the front, and they had, you know, drinks in there that you just hit the button and it came out. What a kick-ass thing to have. I have arcade video games in my garage. That's way cooler. I'm going to have to look for one of those. If I've got some spare income next year, I'm definitely looking for a Coke machine, a soda machine to go in my garage, and I tell you what, I'm going to need it to be High C, or I'm going to need it to be Fruitopia. If I can find a Fruitopia label, even just to be able to print it, you can sometimes find those and insert them. That'd be fantastic. I'd be happy with that. Even if it says Coca-Cola in the background, I don't care. It is what it is. Haley, everything's good. You know what's up? We're going to be talking politics and stuff. I don't know if you want to stick around. Normally, politics is not your thing, though. But definitely wanted to tell you that. Oh, I miss you too, Haley. We gotta play some Fortnite. I got my computers back up and running. We gotta play some Fortnite soon. That'd be fantastic. See, it looks like we got an ad break coming in, guys. So sorry for those of you that are not subbed, but that ad is gonna take over. I have paused it as long as we can. Yeah. So you know Fruitopia too, man. I know. I prefer Moto though. Who remembers Mondo? Mondo. I don't remember Mondo. Like, I remember Volt, which was like a Mountain Dew energy drink or something like that, or maybe it was a Coca-Cola energy drink. Volt was pretty good. But Fruitopia is not an energy drink, but it was pretty good. Little time to chat about politics for a bit. I don't go Fortnite anymore. I got bored with and disappeared from the internet. I mean, Fortnite is definitely something that is in its own world, right? I like to go into and play here and there. Mundo Squeezers, the best juice drink. Dude, we got to look this up, okay? I'm looking it up right now. We're going to bring it up on stream. Mondo Juice. Mondo. I know Haley likes Star. Okay, Mondo. Haley likes Starbucks. Let's see here. Screen capture. There we go. So we got Mondo here. I never had a Mondo, but I remember seeing this label, right? Like, I remember seeing this around. Apparently, you can get it from Walmart. Mondo Fruit Squeezers. I mean, that's something we can get right here. Randall's has it. Let's go ahead. Let's see Walmart Mondo. Dude, you can get this. It's $5.97. Legendary Berry. Right here. You can get it. Walmart.com, everybody. Sign in and send one to me. That's where I'm at. Pretty good stuff. And they also recommend a couple other juices down here in case you don't want Mondo. No one's drinking V8. Get out of here with the V8. No one's drinking V8. But yeah, Mondo. Interesting. What was that called again? It was called... Oh. That pop there. Legendary Berry. It was Legendary Berry. All right. Man, that was insane. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and get back to this. All right. So, it looks like we were missing a camera on that one. Definitely got to check that one out and see what was going on with the camera for that one. But, okay, Mondo. I've never had it. Seems pretty good. Seems pretty decent. I'd like it. I'm ordering that shit this weekend. Do it, man. Do it from Walmart. Get it. Are you doing like the pickup? You doing the delivery? Like, how's that going for you out there, Tater? I don't know. But real quickly, so we had the stream Friday, right? And we were able to go through and did a 5-hour debate stream. Fantastic. If you guys already hadn't followed Common Grounds Live, please go follow Common Grounds Live. Show him some love and support over there. Great guy. We're probably going to try and do this every once in a while. He actually invited me on the show tonight. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get into the show tonight. I had too much going on. Plus, I had this stream planned tonight. Just kind of going through and looking at some of the stuff we were talking about. But I have to tell you, shout out to Common Grounds Live. I learned a little something, and it was that Joe Biden lies. Okay, now I don't know who doesn't know that Joe Biden lies and like humans lying, but I mean, shout out nevertheless. I'll tell you, I'm gonna give you a shout out when you deserve it. Okay, I'm gonna call it like it is, and the shout out was deserved because he was lying. Joe Biden lied about being the top of his graduating law class when he actually was like in the bottom towards the end. I think he was 75 out of 87 or 78 out of 85 or something like that. Those numbers conflated and mixed together, but that's where he graduated. He's not the best lawyer, but I don't think Joe Biden's known as being a lawyer, right? Like, he was a senator. He was the youngest senator in United States history. He was a very long-term running senator. And then he became the vice president under the Obama administration in the President Obama years. Then he became obsolete, and we no longer cared about Sleepy Joe Biden. And then he ended up, of course, coming back when it was time for Trump to be reelected for a second term. And, of course, we now know him as President Trump or as President Biden because he won against the former President Trump. And then there we go, right? So I learned that about Biden. Fantastic. Can't believe it. I'm thoroughly shocked. I'm thoroughly shocked that Biden is a liar. But with that being said, it's nothing. But whatever. It is what it is. So a couple of things that we were talking about in the stream last week that we do need to talk about now is there was a little bit of word salad and gameplay that was happening, right? And the biggest thing that I dislike about anyone in politics is when you start playing around with the numbers and you try to prove your point with numbers which don't make sense, right? Like, you can't say that numbers work this way when they actually work that way. Or if they work this way, they're going to work this way as well. And you can't say that these numbers are fake if these numbers are real. So, there's an exchange with that. I'm changing my vote. Can't believe he lied. I tell you, like, that was the thing, right? Like, that's what I think Common Grounds was talking about on Friday. It was, this is why I'm not voting for him. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about, Trump's lies. We're not going to talk about Trump's lies. It's hearsay. It's hearsay. Well, I mean, there's things like he's been convicted. So, is what it is. But one of the things I want to talk about was going to the civilian unemployment rate. And let's go ahead and get into this. Let's see if I can get my camera right here. So we're going to talk about the civilian unemployment rate. Yeah, main camera right here. There we go. Cool. All right, so it was off for some reason. So civilian unemployment rate is what we were talking about. So here's the civilian unemployment rate. This goes all the way back to 2004. Where we are at right now, we are at the government website for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, right? So this is the government's website, and this is what a lot of these right-wing conservative talk show media people will say. The biggest thing is like numbers, right? Like, and this is not one of the most exciting things for people to look into, but it's important to remember that if you're gonna believe some of the hearsay that you hear about unemployment, it's important that you also look into some of the hearsay, right? So we can talk about the unemployment and how the former President Trump had one of the lowest unemployments in history, and it's true. But it's also true that he had the worst unemployment rate in recent history, right? So what we can do is we can go here. So here's 2004. You're dealing with George Bush over here, and then we end up, in 2008 at the end of this. The Republicans did great here. We go through 2008. We start to spike here during those Obama years. A lot's going in. Another thing to remember about the economy, right, is that you have inflation and whatnot. But it's important to remember that in 2008 we ended up with the crash, right? Now I'm going to bring this up later because this is important. Ultimately, none of this is the president's fault. These are things that naturally happen. It's not like Obama became president, the crash happened because Obama was president, but these are things that naturally are happening and occurring in the economy, and it's just kind of the luck of the draw, the luck of the dice where you're at. But it is important to note that we do blame presidents for these things. So the first couple years of Obama's administration, here we are, and we have issues, right? So we've got issues with unemployment. Pretty much at the end of the Obama era, what are we, 2008, 2012, 2012, 2004, 2012, 2016. So 2008, somewhere in here, we have the financial crisis, and boom, this is where we start to skyrocket. So February 2008, it would be January of 2008. Let's see. So we had 2004, 2000 election, 2004, 2008 elections. So it would be somewhere around March, April 2009. Yeah, it'd be 2009. Right in here. January of 2009. We are at 7.8%, right? So as we go through this term, we're at 7.8%. We continue to skyrocket. But it's important to remember that the unemployment rate was already stacking up before then, right? Like, we were already going up over here. And this was just due to, the war that was starting and dragging in. We had the war on terror, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Then we had, of course, Afghanistan and the operations there. And, of course, every other circle jerk in the Middle East that we were getting involved in at that time. Not doing anything really for the people in the local region. But we started to climb through, and we get to 7.8 in January of 2009. And then we continue all the way up to 10% unemployment rate in 2009. Now, this is after the 2008 crash. So, of course, we have a lot of stuff happening here. It's important to remember, though, that as we go down and we go through the years, Obama really takes hold of the economy, brings it down, not very fast, but brings it down. We get to 2016, right? And we see a growing trend. We see that things are happening. People are getting jobs, unemployment. This trend continues. Now, yet again, the president isn't hired and things change, right? Like the president isn't hired and then all of a sudden people decide that they don't want to work anymore. People are being fired from work. These things that happen, like the economy is moving, right? People aren't going to go through and get an economy that is working for them. And because the president changes, they're going to say, throw out the old economy. That's not how this stuff works. We can see that Obama was doing a lot of work at getting this economy down here, and it kept on going. But as we get into the 2016 election, we end up in 2016 of November with a 4.7%, pretty low unemployment rate. And then we just move forward 2 months, and we're in January of 2017. And this is when President Trump would take office at 4.7. Okay? We see the exact same trend continue. A lot of people would like to give the former president a lot of kudos for this. But it's important to remember that this was already happening. Like you see the trend. These are the Department of Labor's statistics. This stuff was already happening. It goes forward. It starts dropping down. And then once we start dropping down here, it's important to remember that, boom, we hit a spike in March of 2020. What was happening? COVID-19. Is it fair to blame Trump for COVID-19? No. But if we get to give him this slide here, right, this downward spiral into a great economy with the world's best unemployment rate, and we don't give it to Obama, whose clearly job it actually was to take care of, and we also give Obama this nasty spike here when really it was Bush who did this. If we're going to go ahead and blame people for this, it's important to remember that if we're going to blame the Obamas for this spike, we're going to not say that it's the Bushes, and we're going to say that this right here, yeah, it is the Obamas, but this is Trump right here, and it's even lower. If we're going to do that, then we're going to have to give this to Trump, right? And this is the height of the pandemic, 14.8% in April of 2020. Okay, so it's important to remember that this actually is just the pandemic, and that's what happened to all of this stuff within the economy, right? But unfortunately, if we're not going to give credit where credit is due in any of this graph, you're going to have to give at least the blame where blame is due, right? And this, effectively, in that category would be Trump. So not only did he have one of the lowest at 3.5% of the unemployment rate here in February of 2020, bam, we end up with 14.8 not 2 months later. 2 months. Do you know any president that could do this in 2 months? None. Other than the worst, right? But, that's my opinion and that's hearsay. But with that being said, it's also not fair, right? Because we had a global pandemic. So this was partly and mostly the world economy and the pandemic that was happening. But yet again, if we're not going to give the Obamas the credit that they have for stopping the unemployment rate spiking from Bush and give it to the Obamas as they downward spiral, we're going to come over here in 2017 and be like, this is Trump's economy. If we're not going to give Trump if we're going to give Trump the economy here, then we got to give Obama this credit as well. We also have to give Trump this credit, right? It's not good credit, but we got to give him the credit. What up, homeless bag? What's good, my peoples and non-peoples? Yo, man, we all just peoples. So you've got to give credit where credit is due. Now, the thing is, over the next couple months, the economy is going to heal up, right? This is just how economies are naturally going to happen. You got to remember that Trump had a lot of people that he brought in, and this was his pitch for running for president, right? I don't know. I'm not a politician. I don't know how the government works. I don't know what to do. I don't have the answers, but I tell you what I can do is I'll bring in people who have the answers, and that's how we're going to solve things. And this was a big save for people. A lot of people, I can tell you, voted for the former President Trump because of that. They didn't know how he would respond. They said he was a businessman, this, that, and the other. But really, he didn't know how the government worked, and we all knew that. But the idea was, but he's a businessman. He knows how to get things done. He's going to bring in people who knows how to do these things. And ultimately, there was people that luckily had guardrails on, and they brought the economy back down within just a period of time, right? We started to move down. We can give him May here in 2020, so on and so forth. As we get to that November election, right? This is the infamous 2020 election. Excuse me. We are at 6.7% down from 14.8. So that's pretty impressive, right? Ultimately, though, once that 2020 comes in, look what happens. So this right here, I wouldn't say is Biden, right? Like we already had this massive drop. You can see that this massive drop had to have been the policies of recovery from the pandemic. But at some point, we start to go back up and we start to course correct. This would be where Biden's policies would take over, right? Sometime in December, March of 2022. And of course, we're hovering around that 3.5, 3.6, 3.7% right here. Of course, we're going up at about 3.9 as of February of 2024 with the numbers that were released. What was it, last week? This week that we had? So that's still relatively low. It's a lot of people when you consider the American populace as a whole, but it's still not that many people. And this is what's important, right? So this was one of the things that came up in the debate last week that I wanted to be able to bring on stream and show you guys, because this is one of these conservative talk radio host things. All they do is they copy and spew what they've already said and what's been said to them, but they don't actually go through and like look at this stuff, right? Like we don't see what's happening here and we talk about it, right? Let's see, Homeless Bag. How did the debate go with Common Grounds the other night? Only caught about an hour of it. Dude, it was great. Common Grounds, shout out to Common Grounds Live. A fantastic debater. I really enjoyed being on his show and him being on mine. We'll probably look at doing that. He actually invited me on earlier tonight. He had a couple of people running through. Unfortunately, I just couldn't do that, being a dad and everything, husband. I got my duties here in the house that I have to take care of. And I'm only able to really stream Wednesdays, and I give you guys a bonus stream normally on Fridays. So that's how that all went, Homeless Bag. But so this is one of the things that came up. I just wanted to bring up real quick so we could talk about that. One of the things I do want to talk about is some of the stuff going on at the southern border, right? So this is where we get a little bit tricky. When we go through here, and we're now what we're looking at here is the CBP.gov, right? So this is the Border Patrol website. So this is the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol website. This is their numbers, right? And this is one of the things that you got to go through and look, right? You need to read some of the fine print. Is there a lot of people crossing the border? Yes, there is, right? Like that's why there was the bill that was passed or that was trying to get passed to be able to, have this happen. So we ended up with a bill that was passed in the Senate that was put together by conservative Republicans. Like the second most conservative Republican in the Senate actually was in charge of putting that bill together, right? But ultimately, the Senate passes it. It makes it all the way over to the House. The House's job is to pass it. And what happens? They kill it. It's dead on arrival, all because Trump didn't want to give the Bidens a win for the presidential season in the campaign. He wanted to be able to campaign on the border. But the thing is like, this is not about winning elections. And I'll call Biden out for the same thing if he does and when he does something like this. But make stuff happen. A lot of people say that, there's executive orders and Biden could do this and do that. He can't. Trump couldn't. He couldn't. Bush couldn't. Obama couldn't. Like people just can't executive order. The problem with an executive order is it's a really tough thing to sell to the American people, because you're basically saying, I'm going to go around Congress. I'm going to go around the courts and I'm going to do something that we don't currently have a law in place for. And that's what an executive order is, right? That would be considered in, I think, us as Americans terms as a tyrannical government, right? Like that would be tyrannical. They're just going forward and making up laws as we go. There are some times that these policies, these executive orders work well. There's sometimes that they don't. Except there's a third rule. Most of the time, they don't fucking work well, right? Like, executive orders are almost never good. And there's a backlash that comes with it. It's not really well thought out. And that's the idea with laws, right? Or at least was, until today's world, is that Congress is going to go through and pass some of these laws, and they're going to go through and balance some of the things that they know. There's people that have been in Congress for, 20 years, and they're very intimate with how the system works, what laws work, what wording needs to be in these laws. Because when you put the wrong words in, we end up with a Alabama hearing on IVF and banning IVF for several weeks, while people who had poured hundreds of thousands of American hard-worked earned dollars into the toilet and watch it go up in fire as they were getting ready for a IVF treatment that was going to fertilize eggs and or implantation of eggs. All because of some random person that walked into a freezer in a medical facility that should have been secure and ended up destroying 3 or 4 clients worth of frozen embryos. It's a sad thing because those embryos could have been turned into children. But as a family who has gone through IVF, I will tell you, it is not a guarantee that even all those embryos would implant into a uterus, right? So there is a higher probability that it will fail than there is that it will succeed. There is a much lower probability that it will succeed. They actually make you take a class before you do IVF and you start the process to explain to you that it's not the magical wonder drug that people think IVF is. It's not something that is 100% positive is going to keep you moving forward. It's actually quite dangerous to women. It is stressful to men for sure. And for the would-be potential child that is the output of an IVF treatment, there is a chance that you're going to do this 4 or 5 times before it actually takes. So the idea that this costs $24,000 to $34,000 each time you do this, it's a lot of cash. And the fact that, a court hearing and a court ruling can make that big of a decision is why it's important to know that these people on Capitol Hill, whenever they make a law, they've got to make sure that it's good, it's sound, it's going to work with the existing infrastructure. There's not loopholes. If we designed a loophole, then there's a loophole that's got to be fixed, or we've got to bear, the issue of that loophole, right? So it's important to remember that when we're talking about the bills like with the border crossings, the executive orders, we've got to remember that an executive order is just like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, right? So the Congress, the legislative branch, these are the people that go through and have to go forward and make these well-crafted bills, these puzzle pieces that fit perfectly or as best as they can to be able to make ends meet. So executive orders are not the way to go. I don't have much confidence in the large turnout this election versus last time, except I do think Trump voters will turn out in big numbers. Should I be as worried as I am? This is just speculation or feelings. I personally don't think that Trump's going to win re-election. I personally don't. Is there a worrisome? There is. And I have on the docket tonight to be able to talk about some of the Gallup polls that came out, and we can talk about some of the approval ratings going into a second term as an incumbent, and we can talk about some of that. It's going to be coming up next, actually. So I personally don't think that Trump's going to win. I also think that it's important to notate, and we can talk about that with some of the polls, but last time when we were talking about polls, there's just an abnormal amount of Republicans that actually don't want a Trump. And you got to remember, homeless bag, that the Trumplicans are so much louder than everyone else. They're very loud. They're very toxic, and they're very aware and present. Biden supporters are not doing that. I can't remember the last time I saw like a crazy fanatic supporter for Democrats or for anyone that's not Trump. And I think that's probably because we're in MAGA world, right? But the idea is that I can't even remember like hearing Nikki Haley people being that crazy. But what's interesting about Nikki Haley is she was getting 30 and 40% of the Republican Party. Trump cannot win without those people. He cannot. We hear a lot of the big growls. We hear a lot of the stuff from the MAGA crowd. But what we don't hear is the good news, right? The good news is they're always loud. But we're not hearing Nikki Haley people moving over, right? We're not seeing that in the polls either. What we're seeing is that people trust Republicans almost always with the economy. But when you look at some of this stuff, like we were talking about earlier, this is the Bush administration. I was a big Bush fan back when I was younger, and I still think that Bush was an okay president. I think he didn't know what the fuck he was doing, but I think he was an okay president. It's important to remember that this is the Bush administration, and we fail, and we start to have issues during the Bush administration. That's after all this time of being president, learning how the economy works, learning what policies work, learning how to move the country, and we fuck up here at the end, right? So it's important to remember that over here, we have Obama, and Obama clicked in pretty fast to be able to start to downturn on what was happening, right? Nikki Haley. I tell you what, Haley, I am a Nikki Haley supporter. I am 100% Team Haley versus Team Trump. Just on that topic alone. I am not a supporter of Nikki Haley in the general election, but I tell you what, I just don't support Trump. And I don't know where you lie on that. It sounds like you either support Biden or Trump from the comment that you made. But that's the beautiful thing, right? Like you come in, you say, don't get me started on Nikki Haley. That is so much better than a lot of the response that you get from people that dislike Nikki Haley or dislike Trump or dislike Biden, right? Like, don't come in and start saying you dislike someone for no reason at all, spatting conspiracy theories and, well, the cabal and the Democrats or the Republicans in this. Like, don't start doing that. Like, once you come in with facts, right? Like what we're doing here, you can see how Bush over 4 years effed up. And we started to go up. You can see how within just a couple of months, we end up, or a year, we end up with Obama really getting a grasp on what was happening and bringing us down. We can see that the baton was passed to Trump, but we see that the economy was already moving anyway, right? And maybe Trump didn't know what he was doing, so we can give this to him. But if we give this downward, epic over the past 20 years to him, we also have to give him this, which shows he didn't know what the hell he was doing, right? And that's just, like, if the numbers work one way, they work the other way, too. And it's important to remember that. So, Trump here. Gotcha, Haley. Well, you support Trump. I just can't support a rapist. I can't support a fraud. I can't support someone that will refuse to support veterans. I can't support someone who, all the things, right? Like, all the things that we know about, who wanted fake electorates and things like that, who has campaign finance fraud, and maybe every presidential candidate has campaign finance fraud and whatnot. But the thing is that we don't see anyone else's, because if it is happening, it's happening on that small scale that the FEC doesn't even care about or isn't aware of. The problem at Trump is we, every time you look, there's more. So that's my issue. I actually voted for Trump in 2016. I was a big supporter of Trump over Hillary Clinton. But unfortunately, just within a few months of Trump winning, I realized I screwed myself over. I screwed my country over. And I screwed my new family over as well, as Trump removed the right for pre-existing conditions to be covered, because Republicans don't actually care about health care. They care about other things, but health care is not one of them. And how I know this and how this is true is that there was 4 years that Trump had to put a health care bill out. Trump Care. I think he was calling it Trump Care. It never came. He doesn't have anything now. He hasn't said anything now. He doesn't have anything because Republicans don't care about health care, right? Like, what Republicans care about is getting elected, shrinking the government. And it's important to remember that when you shrink the government, it's only us who gets hurt. So that's why I can't support Trump. I am a registered Republican, and I probably always will be, though. It's important to remember that as well. So I just happened to not vote Republican this last election because it was about democracy and making sure that Trump didn't get another 4 years. Let's see what happens this time, though. But homeless bag, that hopefully answered your question a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get into that next. Let's look at the... Excuse me, my throat's dry. Let's look at the border crossings here. Now, here's where we have a lot to talk about because this is over the past 4 years, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. We can see that we have a massive spike in, I think this was single men coming in, single adults coming in at 15,000. Yeah. Oh, this is 150,000 right here coming in. So that's 2022. But if you look at the overall time here over the month, we have these spikes that are coming in, right? So here's where we're currently at now. We see right here, we've got 2023. So this was last year. We had a couple of bumps. So what's important to remember here is that there's a lot of stuff that happens here, right? And this is the big thing, right? So this is single adults rat. Let's go to family units, right? If we go to family units, we see a little bit different of a move, right? We see at the beginning of Biden's term, we see a lot of people running through. That's weird that the I was about to say CDC, but the United States Customs and Border Protection website, their own numbers show that family units are down in this month. We're going down. We are coming down from a massive spike where we were at, right? Let's see. We go back to single adults. We're at a massive fall. You see right here, we're at 164,882 enforcement encounters in December of 2024, and we are down to 107,000. This is good news, right? We don't want people to come across the border illegally. We don't know who they are. We don't know if they have any health conditions that are contagious. There's a lot of things that happen here, right? And we need to make sure that our border is secured, which is why the bill was so important to have been passed. But no one passed the bill. No one other than the Democrats and the Republicans in the Senate. But the House Republicans didn't want to pass the bill. Let's look at the single minors, right? This is Biden loses 15,000 children a day. All right, so this is from the CDC. See, Customs and Border Patrol numbers right here. We have a massive decline in the encounter drops. We have 8,748 when over here we had 13,464. This is a really good decline, right? So the rules are working, but we need something better. Whatever Biden's doing is working, right? It's important to remember, though, that this stuff is being blown out of proportion. And this is the Border Patrol's own numbers, right? Like, this is what they're saying happens. This is their numbers. They have to catalog the numbers. And here's the numbers. It shows that it's down. So there we are. We go to accompanied minors, okay? Accompanied minors. This is a minor that has a either older sibling that is considered an adult or someone who is not the parental unit of the minor is crossing the border. We're up a little bit. So we got some work to do here. But here's the thing, right? For being a Christian nation, which I know that this is what Republicans all want us to do, is to drop what we're doing and become a Christian nation. Killing people, women and children and innocent men that are crossing the border is not Christian, right? So even if we're like, something's got to be done about this, right? Like, we're still mostly Christian in this country. And it's still mainly about having Christian values and decency, right? Like, we all saw Katie Britt on the rebuttal to the State of the Union, which, by the way, that was a thing, right? Like, Katie Britt's rebuttal to the State of the Union. What a load of shit. What a manipulated individual Katie Britt is. She has like Stockholm syndrome from her husband. Like, that's insane. It was scary to see. It was like a creature from a Stephen King novel. It was really weird. So we've got some work to do here, right? But our Christian value is what's important. I mean, we've always been a Christian nation that has had the freedom to have any religion. So it's important to remember that, with that being said, killing innocent people at the border with barbed wire and buoys and, like, you know, saying it's an invasion when it's just like children running across the border is not okay, right? All the other numbers are going down. We have right here accompanying minors. They're going up a bit. Let's get the minors. Let's take them into custody and let's find homes for them, because you got to remember, this is America and we are a nation of immigration, right? All right. So that's what we have right here. That's the numbers that we have from the Customs and Border Patrol, Border Protection. These are the numbers that we're at, right? So with that being said, let's go through and let's pass a border bill. We need to get this border bill back. We need to do something. You know, I don't understand how come Trump couldn't have, you know, been very rejoiceful for having a bill come that he could have campaigned on. I tell you, this would have sealed his win. And, you know, if just go with me on this, this would have made Trump almost impossible to beat, right? So not only is he more popular in the polls, but we end up with a border bill that comes to light. What happens is Trump holds a press conference. He says, I challenge Joe Biden in the White House to sign this bill and work with me and my fellow Republicans to get this bill passed so we can stop the, you know, issues at the border. I tell you, Biden wants the same thing too, and Biden would have signed it, right? And it's what we need as a country right now. And what would have happened is you would have had two presidents come together during an election year to be able to put the American people first. This would have been great. A lot of people say that the bill wasn't conservative enough, and a lot of liberals will tell you that it was too conservative. But the thing is we need a little bit of conservative belief in the border protection, right? We've done the other routes before and it hasn't worked. It's gotten worse. So we need a little conservative background at the border. But with that being said, not conservative enough. Excuse me, guys. When progressive Democrats are running the other direction to be able to run away from your border bill, I think it's a good border bill for the Republicans for sure. We can talk about, is it ethical? Is it a good bill for us as the people? It's a different story. But is it a good bill for Republicans? I think so. If progressive Democrats are running away from it, I think it's a good bill for conservatives for sure. So that's what we need to have happen here. We need that done. Now what we can do is talk about some of these. We'll talk about the approval rating. Then I want to get into election results from the end of the night before we get going at the end here. If we look at the incumbent presidential job approval rating of Joe Biden, right now in 2024, we are just after January, we're at 41% approval rating. It's not the best, but you got to remember, Trump was in like the 30s at some point, right? And he was able to climb back up. This is Gallup poll though. So Gallup poll, I feel like, is a little bit more accurate. If we look in 2020 during the election season, September, we have 42, 47, and pretty much right before the election, we end up with 46 as being Trump's approval rating, right? Right now, we are at 41, and we see that the polls are going down a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Trust me. We've got months and months, guys. So homeless bag, this one's for you out there. We've got months and months before we get to this election, 8 months or so, right? So we've got plenty of time. There's plenty of time for Trump to put his foot in his mouth, and we'll see what happens. But 41 to 46, it's only 5 percentage points. It's a jump. It's not anything impossible. Also, you got to remember that Trump had 46 here. That's hovering just underneath 50%, and he lost. Right now, it was a close election, but he still lost. So we'll see what happens. People also need to remember that the economy is not doing bad. It feels bad because things cost more, and we haven't grown to agree that things are just going to cost more. But we've got 8 months to go through and figure that out. It's not like we're ever going to go back to when milk was $1.20 per gallon. It's always going to be 3 something, 4 something a gallon. That's just the way that it is. Remember like when eggs went up to like $12 or whatever, and they were talking about it was Trump or it was Biden or whatever. It was an avian flu. It was an avian flu, everybody. That's what caused the eggs to go skyrocketing price, and that was it. It was an avian flu. It had nothing to do with the president. So we'll see as the economy equalizes what happens, how that's going to work, and we'll get moving. So there you go. If we look at Obama in 2012, we see here as the incumbent president in 2012, going from 2012 to 2016, he gets to about 52%. This is a really good number for a president, right? Anything above 45 is fairly decent. If you're above 50, that's great. If you can get into the 60s, oh man, that's phenomenal. Let's go back to 2004, the re-election. We're at 48%, and we kind of hovered. So I would say that really looking at this, it looks like former President Bush, George W. Bush, was pretty stable throughout the presidency, right? Like his approval rating kind of stayed there. Clinton, we had some ups and downs. We kind of got a little bit of a spike at the end. We're at 54%. This is a fantastic approval rating, really, when you think about it. In 1996 going to 2000, this is a great. I think this was the Monica Lewinsky time. I think people were really jazzed about Monica Lewinsky and the blue dress. If we look at George H.W. Bush, Herbert Walker, we see back in 1992 as he was going for re-election, that we end up with he started at 68% approval rating. I mean, that's just unheard of, right? But we end up at 34. It just gets cut in half. Truly insane. And obviously he was a one-term president. So there's that. We have Reagan fairly stable, right? If we look at Reagan at the beginning of his re-election campaign, 47%, but then we end up at 58% by the end of that re-election campaign when the election was actually coming around. So that's pretty good. We can get back into Carter. Of course, Carter was a one-term president. I think we all know that. He's also the president that will live forever. He's the oldest surviving president. He's been in hospice well over a year. Condolences to Mrs. Carter, who passed away just a couple months back. But Jimmy Carter still moving forward. It's really sad. Jimmy Carter was a farm boy from Iowa, I think, a farm boy from Iowa, and ended up being a president. Actually, I think he was from Texas. I think it was the Southerner from Texas. He doesn't get enough credit. But he's one of these, old school kind of guys. But you can tell he spiked. But man, we sure plummeted. And by the time he was up for a re-election, we're at 37%. We can look at some of this stuff from Eisenhower. You're at 45%. And really, we're getting to the point where these polls get a little bit fishy. Nixon, 58% going in, and that's pretty impressive because at 58% was when the election was about to happen, which we all know what happened with Nixon. In the 1960s, we have Johnson here, pretty effing stable. I mean, this is 74 to 77. That's pretty stable. And then, of course, Eisenhower, which is going to be in the post-World War II era, 77% in January here of 1956. We end up at 68%. So these are some pretty good numbers here. We have Truman. Oh man, I don't know what's going on here. We got a lot. Is this his different presidential terms? Because we all know that Truman, went through and served several terms, right? Had to Google it because you made me curious. Carter is 99 years old and he was from Georgia. Okay. I remember he was from the South. And I was getting confused. I think he served some time here in Texas and whatnot. I think he was a farm boy overall. But I really feel like Carter was a president that didn't get enough love, in my personal opinion. I wasn't alive then. I don't know anything about Carter other than he's this president that will never die. And, I hope he makes it 110. I really do. He is a treasure to the nation. He gives a lot of money away in charities. This guy, real quick, side note. So, Tater, this guy, Jimmy Carter, At 99, like you Googled and you found out, he still does Habitat for Humanity volunteer work. What? This guy lived through it all. He was raised to be humble. He's always been humble. And even as he is dying, his wife has passed away. He is still humble. He still helps people that are in need because he's got everything he needed in life. Pretty crazy, right? It's insane. Let's look at another one of these real quick, and then we'll move on to election results and end for the night. But when we look at, let's say, some key topics, USA, say, let's see, education, abortion. Here's another thing that's going to be big in the presidential election, right? Is abortion, Roe v. Wade. So when we go through here and we look at all this, you can see that we have some poll numbers here that Republicans, 8% in 2023 Gallup poll says that 8% of Republicans want abortion to be legal under any circumstances by party. So this is, a non-regulated abortion, right? And I think that, there's people that believe that. I personally believe that, you got to do what you got to do. I just don't think it's the right fit for my family. We wouldn't do that. But if that's the right fit for you, then you do it. It doesn't affect me. So 8% of Republicans believe that. I guess I would be one of the 8% of Republicans, but 60% of Democrats believe that, right? The biggest thing here is that when you see these big numbers, right? So this actually doesn't look good for Democrats, but what is an interesting contrast is everywhere's where it's come up on the ballot, it has been carved into stone immediately following that election, right? It goes to Wisconsin, it goes to Oklahoma, it goes to Kansas, it goes here, it goes there, Iowa. Anywhere where it goes, it gets put on the ballot, and it's a big issue. And this is going to be a big issue for women voters in the South, in the North, anywhere in the United States. This is a big issue. And Trump can't win without any of these groups, right? Like, he already is having a problem. Just because he's winning in the polls doesn't mean that when you get there, you're like, you know what? The economy's doing great. But as a mother and as a woman, I think that, healthcare for women just does need to be overlooked. They're not going to vote for Trump. They're going to vote against Trump. When we go through and we talk about some of these splits as well, right? The female vote is so important to any candidate. The candidate cannot win without the female vote of any party, right? So with that being said, Biden has that already unlocked. Trump needs to get that unlocked. And for homeless bag out there, I think that this is one of those things that you need to remember, that Trump is really struggling with the Republican women vote. You have a handful of the percentage of Republican women that are these crazy MAGA people. Those people are always going to be with Trump. It doesn't matter what he does. They'll always be with Trump. But it's important to remember that on the flip side, there is a lot more people that don't support Trump, a lot more women that don't support Trump in the Republican Party. And these are the people that he's going to have to win over just to be able to win, right? But that's one hurdle. We have multiple hurdles. The other hurdle that we clearly have here is the Nikki Haley supporters, the people that are never Trumpers, the people that would not support Nikki Haley. And when we were seeing some of those, election 2024, when we were seeing some of those numbers that were coming through, right, for election 2024, incoming president, U.S. satisfaction, economic confidence, economic concern, party affiliation. So when we go to the party affiliation here and we look at some of those numbers that we had earlier, we're able to go through and we're able to see that overall we ended up with about anywhere from 30 to 40% of the people that were voting in those primaries were voting for Nikki Haley over Trump. He can't win without those people either. This is the other hurdle that he's got to get over. So if he doesn't get the female vote in the Republican Party, if he doesn't get the Nikki Haley supporters, then he's not going to win. And it's important to remember that they would rather vote for a Joe Biden or a third candidate and not vote for Trump. And a lot of people talk about these third candidates, RFK Jr. and whatnot is going to hurt Biden. I really don't think so because of this factor, right? if you're a Nikki Haley supporter and you can't support Biden because he's the worst, you know, if you can't support Trump because he's the worst, you're going to vote RFK. Well, Biden doesn't need those people to win, especially when Trump is losing people much faster, right? So that's important to remember. I can't imagine being a century old and doing charity work. That's amazing. Yeah, it's crazy. Look it up. Jimmy Carter is doing Habitat for Humanity at 99 years old while in hospice, even post his wife passing away. It's truly remarkable. The guy is truly a legend. Shout out to Jimmy freaking Carter. Like, it's really neat. So it's important to remember that Trump can't win without any of that. And that's where I think for all of y'all that are big Trump supporters, that y'all have got to understand that it's not going to be interference in election, right? Like, we've got big issues here. For those of y'all that support Trump, look around and talk to suburban women who are normally Republican. They do not support Trump. Okay? It's important to remember that that's a hurdle that Trump has to overcome and unlock the power of the women vote. It's also important to remember that Trump has to unlock the vote for the Nikki Haley campaign, which he's not going to do. He's already been alienating the Nikki Haley campaign people, right? He's gone through and has been saying, look, if you are a Nikki Haley supporter, then we don't want you. We don't need you. MAGA is 90%, 93%, 95%, 98% of the Republican Party, and it's just not true. The polls show that it's not true, and so did the primaries, right? The primaries show that roughly 30 to 40% of people that are in the Republican Party will vote for Nikki Haley. Now, it's important to remember, well, how come Nikki Haley didn't win more delegates? It's important to remember that Trump and his team had gone through for 3 years now and made sure that the rules were changed in his favor because everyone loved Trump, right? So we talk about election interference. He was interfering in the next round of elections, the elections for the primaries that would effectively go through and select someone. If he was not afraid of Nikki Haley or of Ron DeSantis or of Chris Christie or of Asa Hutchinson, then why would he do this? Right? If MAGA truly was 95%, 98% of the Republican Party, he wouldn't need to. They wouldn't vote for anyone else. But the fact that you see numbers coming in out of the people that turned out for the primaries, yes, she lost every state except for Virginia. Out of all of the, or excuse me, Vermont, after all those people showed up, you ended up with 40% of the people voting for Nikki Haley. That is a hurdle that Trump cannot beat. That is a hurdle that Trump cannot win. That is a lost election again for Trump. I am not too excited about Biden because of his age. And because of the fact that he also duped us, he said he was only going to run one term. Yet again, he lied again. But you know what? This is what politicians do, right? So I am going to be supporting him in this election just because of the fact that he's not really doing a bad job. And hopefully y'all are going to see this after he gets reelected. I hope that his health is going to be able to carry him through. And we're going to be able to get through all that. So that's important to remember. Yo, remember to order this Mondo. Yeah, order this Mondo, Tater. Get that stuff going. Legendary Berry Mondo. Get it going. Let's get it. All right. In Washington, D.C., I know that's not a state, but it is a primary. So, yeah, but you got to understand. So, like, Washington, D.C. is Washington, D.C., right? Like, it's primarily all liberal Democrats, and if there is any right-leaning or independent people there, they're voting for Nikki Haley just because they're educated, right? That's the big thing. That's the other thing we didn't even talk about. I'm not even going to get too much into it because it's so much, but ultimately, people who vote for Trump are uneducated, and that's just polls, right? Polls show that. When you see the people on there, well, so is Vermont. Vermont is also full of those people, and they chose Nikki Haley, and that was my point. Washington, D.C., they're choosing Nikki Haley, right? Like, That's the big thing. So when you consider the college graduate conservative, they're voting for Nikki Haley. They're a conservative at heart. They're normally probably Christian. They're not going to vote for Trump because Trump is literally the embodiment of evil to what conservative actually believe deep down inside. But we get to Nikki Haley going through and, slaying on the win there. And that's where she takes it, is when you're talking about the college graduate. And then, real quick, when we talk about the movement to be woke or to not go to college because these liberal colleges are teaching our people, has anyone ever thought that the reason that Republicans and conservatives don't want people to go to school is because then you don't vote their way because you have been woke? I've said this several times, but the idea of being woke means that the rest of everyone else is asleep. Like, has no one caught on to that? Like when they go, "Are you woke or something?" I mean, are you saying that you're asleep and that we should just go back to being asleep? Is this the Matrix? Like, should we just not worry about Zion and the people really being free? That's the thing that always bothers me, because they never think about that. And they'll say it and they don't respond. They don't get it. They don't say anything. So it's really scary. It's the Kool-Aid that they've drank. But it's important to remember that nevertheless. So, yeah, I mean, I personally think that Trump's going to lose. For all of y'all out there that, want to pitch in, please add a little bit into the chat there what you think about that on any of the platforms we're on. That's actually a brilliant point. Which is an actual brilliant point? You talking about the woke? I mean, not the number crunching that I did that I've been studying for 3 weeks, but the fact of being woke, and the fact that if someone says that you're woke, that means that they're asleep. Is that the brilliant point, Tater? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about, because it is a brilliant point. But that's what's funny, right? Like, if Republicans are wanting to stop, and conservatives are wanting to stop people from going to school to be educated, it's because of the fact that MAGA is full of uneducated people, and that Nikki Haley supporters are normally educated conservatives or Republicans. And because of that, yeah, woke versus being asleep is the way to go. This is the only thing that they have left. They've now, and what's truly crazy is imagine 30 years ago someone telling you this. You would think that America would never be this way, right? You would think that we are too smart, we're too savvy, we are an educated country. That's correct, we were. And then Christian nationalists started to come in, and homeschooling and things like that. Like, homeschooling can be good, sure. Probably not, right? Like, I've known a couple of people that were homeschooled, and they've turned out brilliant and great. But that is few and far between, because a lot of people who are homeschooled hated it, and they never continued on afterwards. And even if they do, they have social anxiety problems because they weren't integrated with people to be able to have those normal growths that they needed. And it continues into the workplace for them. So with that being said, I personally don't think that the Christian private school movement is good. I don't think that the uneducated college, uneducated movement is good. I think that we should encourage our kids to go to school and to be smart about what they're going to school for. And even if not, just be smart. Like, just don't believe what you hear on the news and whatnot, the media, because I tell you, the right will tell you the media is bad. The left will tell you the media is bad. I'll tell you, the media is bad. But I don't not believe the media because they're lying to you. What I'm talking about is the clickbait mentality of today with social media. You're going to click on something because there's a clickbait. You're going to read it real quick, and then you have an opinion. And if they phrase that opinion within the first paragraph or the first couple sentences or the first sentence of that, what should be a very lengthy article and detailed, you're going to have that opinion. You're going to take it and run with it. And that's how a lot of this misinformation spreads, right? No one actually looks into things. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and slow down here as the stream is ending, go through, figure out what Friday's looking like. I'm going to be back Friday. We're going to go through. We're going to be streaming again Friday. We're going to see how everything's working. I tell you, it's going to be a good Friday stream. Hopefully, we're going to get in with some of the people kind of talk a little bit, get moving, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to pass you guys over to, let's see, who's live right now. It looks like Ozweeka's alive in just chatting. I think we're going to pass you over to Ozweeka, a buddy of mine that has been able to be here in the show and in the chat. And he normally does a little bit of talking as well. So hopefully this is something that, you'll find interesting. But see, get that raid going. Yo, Tater, hopefully you're going to be playing that Star Wars game this weekend, because I thought that game was kick-ass, if you ask me. I thought it was just a fantastic game. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm excited to watch you play it. Hopefully that's something that you're going to be doing. Your numbers are fascinating. I love numbers. I mean, you specifically do like numbers. Like, you specifically are the person that likes numbers. I think that if anyone in the chat and in the community likes numbers, it's going to be you, right? All right, guys. I'm going to catch you guys Friday. Hopefully you all have a fantastic evening. I will catch you guys Friday. This is The Political Gamer, and I'm passing you guys over to Ozweeka. Have a good night, Tater. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for the Follow Warrior insight, and I'll catch y'all next time.
We know our stuff. So try our garlic epic stuffed crust pizza, made with our